afternoon.
Afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Jeff Ciardi. I'm a resident of Chandler, Arizona, and been in Arizona for almost 20 years.
Where are you currently working?
I work at a company called BioVenus for the last year, but prior to that, for the 22 years previous to that, I worked at a company called Monlica, and I've been in medical device sales for 26 years.
For purposes of our court reporter, could you spell the name of that company? Because it's
Yes.
kind of hard to spell and pronounce.
No worries. So Monlica is Molnlycke.
Now, when you were working for that company, can you describe what that company does?
So Monlica had a few different divisions. The division that Allison and I were in was the most prominent, which was our wound care, burn, trauma, and surgical portfolio. We also did a host of other medical devices, antiseptics, turning and positioning products that would prevent injuries in hospitals for patients with longstanding illnesses, as well as disposable medical products in the operating room.
And how long did you work for that company?
22 years.
Now, you mentioned in one of your last answers, Allison. So do you know somebody by the name of Allison Feldman?
I do.
And how do you know her?
Allison and I worked together for several years at Monlica. She also worked for me directly for almost 3 years.
And what type of work did she do for the company?
When Allison and I first started working together in August of 2012, she was a territory manager, which entailed she supported our wound care portfolio. So she would go to hospitals, non-acute facilities like hospice centers, clinics, and provide doctors, physicians, staff, nurses education about how to treat specific chronic and acute conditions. As time went on, she was promoted about a year into my tenure, and she became regional trauma and burn specialist, and she did that for the last several years.
Now, did she travel frequently for work?
Very much so, yes.
I think you mentioned territory. Where were the places that she traveled to for her work?
So my team, which was called the Rocky Mountain team, we had the largest geography in the country. So we covered 14 states from Arizona through the middle of the country, Colorado, Utah, Idaho, went up through the base of Wyoming, across to Nebraska, Missouri, half of Kansas as well.
Do you recall what states Allison typically would handle for you?
Everyone, so wherever there was a major burn or trauma center. So we, everywhere from West Texas through Nebraska, Arizona. So she managed the entire region as well.
Okay. And you mentioned that there was frequent travel. Do you have an idea of how frequent per month?
I would say she was on the road typically 3 times a week. Sometimes our jobs would take us on the road every week, but I would say between 2 and 3 times a month.
Now, being on the road, is that always out of state or is it sometimes within the state?
It could be within the state. So sometimes, depending on the in-servicing that we would do in support of the clinicians and staff, we may stay overnight, even if it was down in Tucson. But we were frequently outside of Arizona as well.
And did your company have a home office?
We did. It was in Atlanta, but we tend to work out of our remote facility, so we were considered remote employees, so our office was our homes.
Okay. So when Allison wasn't traveling, she was handling most of her work matters at home?
Yes.
Was Allison a good employee?
No, she was a great employee. She was amazing. Dedicated, driven, passionate. She balanced the hectic nature of a sales role, which is very much results driven, with also being extremely compassionate. I think that's what made her special. She had such drive and tenacity, but it was balanced with a sense of passion and compassion for those that she was helping.
Typically, what was Allison's demeanor like?
Sweet, funny, caring, outgoing, talkative. She was just bubbly, fun. She was an amazing woman.
How did she get along with her coworkers?
Very well. We were a really close, tight-knit team. We typically considered ourselves a family. When we would get together with larger, our company at large at typical meetings, we tended to stay together as a team, whether it was social events, outings. We were sort of the, quote, fun bunch, and a lot of that had to do with Allison's presence, her bubbly nature. She was always trying to bring people into the circle. She was very charismatic.
In addition to being her boss, I think you said for about 3 years, did you also
Yes.
consider Allison a friend?
She was a friend and somebody that I considered almost like a little sister. I came from a large Italian family. I'm the youngest. Never had younger siblings, and Allison was somebody that I looked at as just someone I cared about very deeply. We would talk to 2, 3 times a day. We were very close.
And it sounds like your group as a whole was pretty family-like. Did you guys socialize outside of work?
Yes.
Would that involve going to each other's homes and things of that nature?
Yep, very much so. We would go to each other's homes. Allison did come over to my home. I'd been to hers. We would frequent establishments, go out for dinner and drinks in Arizona. We also would do company functions as well. Festival of Trees, which was hosted by Maricopa Burn Center, we would go to on an annualized basis. But yes, we would hang out socially as well.
During the time Allison worked for you, did you ever have the opportunity to meet her parents?
I did.
How would you describe, given that you've indicated you had a very close relationship with Allison, her relationship with her family?
Family was everything to Allison, family and friends, but her family most importantly. Her parents, I don't remember a day that she didn't talk to her parents. That was just something she cared deeply about. Also, she was an aunt, so she talked to her sister quite often, but family and friends were two of the most important things in her life.
Did you ever have the opportunity to meet her boyfriend, Alex?
I did.
And again, in your close relationship with Allison, how did her relationship with Alex seem to you?
Amazing, great. I teased Allison quite a bit that no matter what conversation we were having, somehow, some way, she worked in a comment about Alex. They loved each other. I mean, you could tell there was a special bond, and Allison, over the time that I had known her, had dated others, but there was a different spark and a light when it came to her and Alex.
Was this a more serious relationship from the ones you had seen prior?
Very much so.
During the time that you had this close relationship with Allison and had supervised her, did she ever mention that she was having problems with anybody at work?
No.
Did she ever mention that she was having problems with anyone outside of work?
No.
I'm going to come back to one particular point about that a little bit later, but I want to kind of draw your attention to February 17th, 2015. Do you recall that date?
I do.
Was that the last time that you ever saw Allison alive?
Yes.
Can you tell us about your last interaction with Allison?
In February, prior to when we typically would get paid our bonuses, we would go through an annual review process. It was a pretty lengthy process. It would start in December, and in February we would go through, and I would sit down with each of my employees and go through it personally. Some managers would just send the document to those individuals, but I wanted to make sure that I met with each of my employees personally. So Alice and I, living in close proximity, we decided to go out to lunch and spend the afternoon together.
And do you recall where you went?
Yes, we went to the Daily Dose in Scottsdale.
Okay. And do you remember kind of around the time frame that particular day where you met up with Allison?
Yeah, we got to the Daily Dose probably a little bit before noon, and we stayed probably till close to 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Okay. How did Allison appear during your meeting with her?
Very happy. She received, as I said, she had just taken a promotion, and she was incredible in the role. When you're working in burn and trauma, you see some of the most critically ill patients. It takes a certain character of person that can compartmentalize that and still provide education, understanding to physicians and staff of how best to treat those patients. So when she took the role, I knew she would be great, but I didn't realize just how good she would be. Her review was stellar. I let her know just how proud I was of her. I'd seen her come from a person who was complimentary to the team and a leader, but someone who really flourished more as in a leadership role. And she and myself and one other partner on the team, our nurse, had the broadest interaction across and most collaboration across all of our teammates. and she was exceptional in what she did.
While you were at the restaurant with Allison that day, was there anything that gave you concern while you were there?
None.
After your meeting with her at the Daily Dose, did the two of you then kind of part ways?
Yes. I gave her a big hug after, told her how proud I was of her. I was leaving for a trip the next day, so I went home. I had asked Allison what she was going to do the rest of the afternoon, and she said different odds and ends. She'd probably run some errands, and that I would catch up with her later to remind her that she needed to sign the document.
Which leads me to my next question. At some point later on in the day, did you have a few more communications with Allison?
Yes.
What was the first one?
The first one was, as I said, to remind her that the process for the review was not complete until until she went in to electronically to sign the document. And I had asked just to remind her that she had to go in and complete that task.
The reminder, did that come via an email, a text, a phone call?
We had spoken on the phone.
Okay. And then later on in the day, did you hear from Allison again?
I did.
And what was that about?
The prior week, we had been at a presentation where we were introducing our trauma portfolio to staff and surgeons at a hospital. She requested that I send over the document and the template to her for her meetings later on that week.
And when you heard from her requesting this template, was that something that came via email, a text, a phone call?
We had spoken one last time that evening.
And did you ultimately send her the template?
I did.
And how did you do that?
Via email.
Was that the last time that you ever communicated with Allison again?
Yes.
At some point, did you learn that someone else on the team had communicated with her a little later in the day that day?
Yes. In the days following the incident, yes.
Okay. And who was that coworker?
Kimberly Minor.
And do you recall what you learned about that communication and around what time that occurred?
Yes, it was later in the evening after we had corresponded about Allison wanting the template. So I think it was probably another hour later, somewhere around 7 o'clock.
If you recall, can you tell the jury when you learned about Allison's death?
The following day, so I went home, packed, and left for Denver, Colorado, where I was meeting another one of my representatives. We had meetings with physicians and staff throughout the Denver area that day. So in and out of hospitals, you tended at that point in time not to have great cellular service. So it was later in the evening after I was back at my hotel, probably, I remember it being very dark out, so it was probably close to 6 or 7 o'clock.
And was this on February 18th of 2015?
Yes.
How did you learn about what had happened?
My wife had contacted me and said that Allison's father was trying to get a hold of me that day. And between dinners and meetings, I hadn't checked my voicemail or text messages at that point. And that I should contact Allison's father.
Did you contact him?
I did.
And is that how you learned about what happened?
Yes.
Given this kind of familial group that you had at work, did you also learn, once you started talking about with the team members what had happened, that some of her coworkers had been trying to get in touch with her that day?
Yes.
And did that go without success?
It did.
Was that something that was unusual to you?
Very much so. Allison never turned off her phone. It was something we would joke about as a team. She was very responsive to me, her family, teammates, friends, but I honestly cannot remember a time where she would ever have her phone off or not respond to communications.
So you mentioned that you learned about Allison's death on February 18th. The very next day, February 19th, do you recall receiving a phone call from the Scottsdale Police Department?
Yes,
Did they do an interview with you?
they did.
Did that interview occur over the phone?
It did.
During that interview, did you essentially provide police with some of the information that you've discussed with us here today in court?
I did.
I want to ask you about some follow-up that kind of took place in between the days to follow. First of all, a few days after your phone interview with police, did they meet up with you to ask you to provide a DNA sample?
Yes,
Did you do that?
I did.
Were you aware of any other of your employees that did so as well?
Yes, one of the other male employees, Joe Paddock in the state of Arizona, who lived locally, he was also provided a DNA sample as well.
Was that a coworker that was close with Allison as well?
Very much so, yes.
Now, if you recall, I asked you about whether or not you were familiar with anyone that Allison might have had a problem with outside of work. At some point, did you receive an email from Allison's coworker, Kim Miner?
I did.
And tell us what you learned through that email.
In the email, Kim had mentioned that there was a person over time, I think prior to Allison moving to her home in Scottsdale, a UPS driver that Allison had mentioned to Kim that had either she had to thwart some advances or had asked her out on dates previously. Because we tend to get tons of packages, we're constantly ordering supplies so that we have samples to provide doctors or patients at that point. That professional probably had a ton of interaction with Allison over time.
And so when you received this email, did you provide that information to the Scottsdale Police
I
Department?
did.
In the event it was relevant?
Yes.
At some point, did the police also follow up with you to check on the status of a credit card that was kind of a company card, Allison's American Express corporate card?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
I recall that the Scottsdale Police had reached out and asked if there was any activity on the corporate credit card when we would, go out, whether it be traveling for incidentals as we were traveling. The company provided us a corporate credit card for incidentals and for also entertaining.
And did there appear to be any fraudulent activity on that card?
At the time, I don't recall, no.
During your interactions with police, is it fair to say that you were trying to be helpful in providing as much information that you could to see if it in any way could assist the investigation?
100%, absolutely.
Do you recall talking to the police about a conversation you had had with Allison about a gun?
I do.
Tell us what you recall about that.
Allison had reached out and asked, and the only reason I remembered it was just days before the incident, and there was an issue with, I got an alert on my phone that there was either a terrorist attack or an ISIS attack, and Allison and I were chatting about that, and she had mentioned at that point that she was interested in potentially obtaining and owning a firearm. She knew that I like to go to the gun range and go target shooting, so she asked me just questions about which handguns, things of that nature. But
And you told the police about this, why?
just the timing, I felt it was just too much of a coincidence, but it was also something that just sparked in my memory just days after the incident that we had had this conversation, and I wanted to make sure that all relevant information was provided to the police.
Was there anything that Allison had told you at the time that you believed in any way was necessarily tethered to this conversation?
Not at all.
Just something that you felt like you should share in case there was something to it?
That is correct.
And then one last question I have for you is, I believe you had one other final contact with Scottsdale Police Department, if I'm correct, when I believe it was around October of 2015 when they called to ask some questions a little bit more specific to the areas that Allison covered as part of her job. Do you recall that?
I do.
And what do you recall about that?
I recall that they had asked whether or not Allison had gone up north into the Flagstaff area. Typically, Allison would go into the more metropolitan areas where, again, you'd have level 1 trauma centers or where burn centers would typically be situated. And there would have been very little reason for Allison to be in Flagstaff unless she was supporting Joe Paddock, who covered that area.
Okay. And so you provided the police with that information?
I did.
One moment. I do not have anything additional. Thank you, sir.
Cross-examination by the defense whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ciardi.
Yes.
You testified you were Allison's direct supervisor for approximately 3 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you supervised, I believe, a total of 4 individuals as part of your direct group?
At the largest, it was 11. There were 4 of us in the state of Arizona,
4 in the
including
state of
myself.
Got it. And you described this team as a very close-knit group.
That is
You
correct.
considered each other family,
Yes.
and everyone in the team got along well.
Yes.
And in addition to being her Allison's supervisor, you considered her a personal friend, correct?
Yes.
Okay, in fact, I think you testified you saw her as a little sister.
Yes.
You guys were close.
Yes.
And you were someone that Allison trusted, correct?
Yes.
And this work team of yours, including Allison, knew you were someone who enjoyed recreational shooting, correct?
Yes.
In fact, they gave you a gift certificate for a shooting range for Christmas,
Yes.
I believe. And Allison was aware of your knowledge and interest in firearms.
Yes.
And when you discussed some of the guns you owned.
Yes.
You testified, you talked about going to a shooting range, taking her to a shooting range.
Yes, I offered that if she ever was interested and decided to pursue the matter further, that I would certainly be willing to take her and provide her at least some basic information.
Okay. Did you guys set a date or anything like that for that?
We did not.
And you testified that she was looking into getting a gun for home protection?
That was, again, the conversation that we had very briefly. It was just around personal safety. Yep.
And you also learned that Allison and Alex had visited a gun store in Tucson?
Yes, she made mention of that in one of our conversations.
And as you testified, that's something that stood out, that her asking about guns stood out to you after learning about her death. So you decided to share this information with detectives, correct?
I did.
Prior to Allison being promoted to, I believe you said territorial manager in 2015, her annual salary was approximately $82,000. Does that sound about right?
Prior, as a territory manager, probably somewhere in that range, yes.
Okay. One moment. And then just one last question. So 82,000, that would be approximately $3,416 a month.
I'll take your word for it.
No other questions, thank you.
Any redirect by the state?
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Okay. And does anyone from the jury have a question for this witness? And seeing none, may this witness be excused subject to recall.
Yes.
You may step down, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.